Good morning. Good morning, good morning. It is Thursday, of course, and it is 7 a.m. And it's the first day of fall. Happy first day of autumn to you. And it's kicked off with it's cool outside. A little chilly if you haven't been outside yet. So today I want to talk about boundaries. You'll see our topic today is, hey now, back off and let's talk about boundaries. So you're probably going to hear me refer a lot this morning, or more than usual, to my recovery. Because through my recovery, that is where I learned the importance, number one, the life protecting importance of boundaries, and also really truly what they mean and how, again, how important they are and how valuable they are, and really how to establish them and how to protect them. So that was through my recovery. I'm pretty sure most of you know me, but just a little background on that, on my recovery. When you say recovery, what do you mean by that? I am an alcoholic and an addict in recovery. Today is day 246, clean and sober, and I'm extremely proud of that. I'm also very open about it because I believe that God put me in this position and in this place in my life for a reason. And I just feel that I owe it to myself, and I owe it to Him, and I owe it to whoever else is in my life to just be who I am, be real. And part of who I am is an addict and an alcoholic in recovery. So that's me. So you'll hear me refer to that quite a bit this morning as we talk about boundaries. So my favorite thing to do, as you know, is to look up definitions. So a definition of boundary that I found is a line that marks the limits of an area, otherwise known as a dividing line. And I particularly like that definition, not only because it's short and concise, but because it used the word limits. Boundaries are thought of a delineation, sure, but I also like to think of them as a limit, because when we set boundaries for ourselves in our lives, we really are limiting the amount of an effect that someone has over us, on us, to us, at us, anything like that. So it's setting a limit. Boundaries sometimes has a negative connotation. And let's just get that out there right off the bat. Setting a boundary for yourself, for your life, and we're going to talk about different types of boundaries, but setting a boundary for yourself is not being selfish. It's not being selfish. It's being self-caring. So setting a boundary is and again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I am going to talk about how people react to boundaries sometimes, and how that needs to matter to us or not. So boundaries, I like to think of it as a limit. I also like to think of boundaries as your own personal blanket fort. Remember when we were kids, we would set up the chairs or your bed or whatever and hang blankets over it, and you'd go inside that blanket fort and you would just feel awesome. You would feel like, this is my space. This is my safety zone. This is my fort. This is my home, my crib. So I like to think of boundaries as that, because we really are kind of setting up a soft limit for ourselves, and feeling pretty good while we're in there. So it's our blanket fort. So boundaries, 3 steps in boundaries. And the first we kind of are pretty good at. The second, and then the third, me personally, I need to work on a little bit. So the first step is we need to determine them. We need to determine what our boundaries are, what our limits are with people. And of course, that's going to be different for each person that we encounter. It's going to be different for each event, each scenario that we're in. So we need to determine what our boundaries are. And it's good to determine them early. Listen to yourself. Trust your gut. Because, and I said this last week, a lot of times when we are, we need to examine what we tolerate. And a lot of times what we tolerate internally, mentally, or, kind of what our initial reaction is internally, is a lot less tolerant than what we actually relay to other people. Why is that? Well, we'll get to that. A lot of it has to do with fear of upsetting someone, quite frankly. And so we'll get to that. So first we need to determine what our boundaries are. And yes, it's going to be different for every scenario. It's going to be different for every person. And boundaries are dynamic. Boundaries will change. Now, when we first meet somebody, our boundaries for them are going to be completely different than someone that we know, that we've spent time with, that they've earned our trust. Please, please value. I try to remember to value myself enough to, totally lost my train of thought. I knew that was going to happen sooner or later. Value yourself to set the boundaries and just be okay with them. So we need to determine them, then we need to set them. And by setting them, I need to let people know what they are. Whether that's just verbally saying, here's as far as I'll go with this, or, what you said made me uncomfortable, or just physically removing yourself from a situation. I mean, there have been times, again, going back to my recovery, social situations. I need to listen to myself. I need to listen to my tolerance and what I'm having a reaction to. And, it's just innocent situations. I'm out with friends or, at a party or wherever. And, folks are having a great time. God bless them. Have a great time, please. But, I might get a little antsy, a little anxious, a little uncomfortable, and I need to listen to that. And I need to remove myself physically from the situation. One of the suggestions through recovery from folks that I talk to is, always have your own transportation when you go somewhere. Yes, it's great to ride with people and carpool and all that jazz. But if you know that you're going into a situation that you potentially may have your boundaries pushed, make sure you have your own way out. Don't trap yourself. So make sure you have your own, well, I do. I should start using I statements as I'm saying you a lot today, and I apologize for that. I need to make sure that I have my own transportation out. The third step and the most important step is we have to protect them. We have to protect our boundaries. I have to protect my boundaries. My life depends on it. And I think we can agree sometimes that one person's boundaries are sometimes another person's challenge. There's people out there that inherently seek out people, consciously or unconsciously, seek out people with either weak boundaries or no boundaries, or boundaries that they know that there's a little a break or a breach in their boundaries, and they just go in for the kill. I was having dinner with some very good girlfriends last night, and we were talking about this. Some people that we've encountered in our life that for whatever reason, and it's not my job to take their inventory. It's not my job to figure out. It's not my position to determine or decide why this person is the way they are. It's their business. It's their life. And, it could very well be that they've got a lot going on that I don't know about. It's not my place to take their inventory. What my responsibility is to myself is to decide how I'm going to react to them. And again, to set boundaries for myself that is going to protect me from someone like that, someone that seeks out weaknesses in other people. How much I allow that person to participate in my life. Something, again, that I've learned very recently as I've gone through my recovery. And, we need to set our own boundaries. I need to set my own boundaries. Otherwise, other people are going to set them for you. And I can pretty much assure you from my experience, they're not going to be where you want them to be. And, there's all kinds of different boundaries. There's physical boundaries. There's emotional boundaries. There's time boundaries. There's people that take advantage of our time or expect a lot of our time. And, if you have volunteeritis, you definitely know the pitfalls of that, of having very little boundaries for your time. And again, going back to what we talked about last week, well, maybe we were talking about it last night, who knows. Last week is, people treat us how we train them to treat us. So, if I've taught somebody that, if they come to me with something, I will always say yes. I will always drop everything, no matter how important it is for me, put myself aside and just, lay down on the road for them. They're going to treat me that way. So, we've got to train people how we expect to be treated and what our boundaries are and what our limits of tolerance are. So set your own boundaries or other people will set them for you. And I know every single one of us watching this or listening to this right now has had that happen to them. And it sucks. And it's hard to get out of. once you're in there, you're sort of in the quagmire and you're sort of like, oh my gosh, how do I get out of this thing? Again, without hurting ourselves or hurting other people. So set the boundaries at the get-go. When I am feeling exhausted or angry or stressed out or anxious, that's my brain sort of saying to me, SOS, SOS, your boundary has been crossed, whether it's my energy boundary. So, again, a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-care goes into that. So how do we set the boundaries and how do we protect them? Again, one of my favorite words is the word no. Following up on last week, no is a complete sentence. N-O, period. Saying no to someone or saying no to something or a situation or whatever, we don't need to explain. We don't need to justify. We don't need to, we don't need to rationalize it to anybody. Sometimes, folks will expect us to do that. If we say no to them and they're not used to it, they're going to expect us to tell them why. And, judge for yourself. Over-explaining and over-rationalizing things to folks sometimes really weakens our stance. If I'm saying, well, I really don't want to do this because, well, no, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for thinking of me. I'm grateful for that. But this time I just really need to say no. I need to step back. There's some things that I need to take care of for myself first. But thank you. Say no. N-O, period. Without apologies. Without an explanation. And setting boundaries sometimes is scary. I get that. Believe me, I get that. When I was in the thick of the beginnings of my recovery, there were some people that I needed to set boundaries with that were really, really difficult. I mean, it came at the expense of my marriage. That I had to set a boundary that said, I need to, and with friends as well, and some family members, unfortunately, fortunately not a lot with friends and family. Thank you for those of you that stuck with me through it all and had my back and made sure that I was safe. But it's hard and it's scary. It's really, really scary because sometimes that means that people are going to push back on us. And okay, and I think it's important for me to remember at least the people that had the issue with us setting boundaries for ourselves, the people that give us shit about it and get upset with us about it and want to have a temper tantrum about it, those are the people that have the issue, not us. Even though they're going to make me feel like I'm wrong or I'm inconsiderate or I'm selfish. Believe me, I heard the word selfish a lot. And I had to get to the point that I was okay with that. It's not selfish, it's self-care, it's self-awareness, it's self-respect, for goodness sake, self-respect. So, yeah, it's scary and people aren't going to like it. But those people are, again, the ones that have the issue. And we have to remember what the most important thing is in your life is you. You are the most important thing in your life, and you and only you are the one and only person that are going to prioritize that for yourself, for your life. Because it starts there. It starts with you. Because, if we are trying to put on other people's oxygen masks before we put on our own, we get into trouble. So people are going to react. The other thing is, setting boundaries sets us up for change. Change is hard. Change is necessary. Change is awesome. And failure with that is an absolute possibility. It's a potential consequence for change, is failure. And I've learned to embrace failure. I could look at my addiction as a failure. And, there was a time that I did, that I was just absolutely, unbelievably, unbearably ashamed. There's a tremendous amount of shame that comes with addiction. And, I saw it as a huge failure. And I'm grateful for the opportunity and, the treatment that I went through and the people that I met in the process and the people that I continue to meet. that showed me the way that it's not a failure. And by standing up for myself and embracing my recovery, it's actually the biggest victory that I've ever experienced in my life. So, sometimes through failure, or what could potentially be seen as a failure, we do experience our largest and our most awesome victories. And you'll have people that say, failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. You know what? Okay, good for you. At least, again, this is my opinion. Rock on with your bad self. Failure is not an option is a really rough way to live. Because, again, through failure, just my one recovering addict's opinion, through failure comes growth. Through failure comes self-awareness. Through failure becomes, you learn through it. You grow through it. You lick your wounds. You find your people. You keep your circle small. And you forgive yourself. And that's where your biggest victories come from. Fall down 7 times, get up 8, something like that. So through failures can definitely become our biggest victories. So that's my time this morning, guys. And I am so grateful. I am so grateful for you guys that just take 15 minutes out of your day and hang out with me in the morning or in the afternoon or whatever it is that you watch me. And just take some time out to just kick around some ideas and listen to me share my thoughts, my experiences, my opinions sometimes. I'm so grateful for that. It's good for, I don't know, whatever. I'll just stop there. Thank you. So set your boundaries, determine them, set them, and most importantly, protect them because you're worth it. You are worth it. And again, those that don't see that you're worth it, bye-bye. So have an awesome Thursday. Enjoy your first day of autumn. Get out there and enjoy the crispness. And just take today. Just take today and learn something new. And never, ever forget, I love you guys.